Live.
Isn't this pre-recorded?
Shut up.
From his bedroom.
Did you say his bedroom?
Why, yes. Yes, I did.
Oh, he is such a bad boy.
Say, man, what this show about anyway?
Politics. Religion.
Say what? Don't you know you're not allowed to talk about that stuff?
It's time to break some rules then. Prepare to get triggered and be made uncomfortable because here's your host, the Jace Man, Jace Barnett. And this is Those Two Things.
So, welcome back to Those Two Things. It's been a long time since we've done this, and we're not officially back. We will officially be back Wednesday morning, which gives me time to segue into this exciting news. We will now be broadcasting live 3 days a week, which means that I guess I need to re-record my intro. Since I mock the concept of it being live, we actually will be doing that now. So I'm going to need to get that fixed ASAP. But we'll be going live 3 days a week. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 10 a.m. Central Time. So make sure you get your watches and calendars set. Get your little Google reminders telling you, hey, Jace is on the air. It's time for Those Two Things. If you're watching us for the first time, this would be a great time to like and subscribe. We are outspoken here, and we talk about the things that you're not supposed to talk about, politics and religion. I've been away for quite some time, had some personal matters going on, and a very busy personal life that has kept me from giving the show the attention it deserved, and I don't like to do anything sort of half-heartedly. But now I have the time and efforts to focus on it the way that it should be, so we're going to do that, and like I said, I'm going to commit to giving you guys 3 days of great content each and every week. Now, even though we're supposed to officially kick this thing off on Wednesday, I didn't want to wait until Wednesday to actually get the show going. I wanted to jump in and do it now. I got the set redesigned, I got everything ready to rock and roll, and I also sort of wanted to go ahead and test this off, get the technical kinks out and everything. Plus, it's been a while since I spit into the microphone, so maybe I can't do it anymore. I don't know. But I figured we'd go ahead and do an unofficial start before we actually kick things off on Wednesday. And I think what we're going to do Wednesday is we're actually going to start live streaming to multiple sources. So whether you are a YouTube user, a Twitch user, Facebook, or one of the other sources, I think you're going to be able to find our content pretty easily. So stay tuned for that, and I'll let you know exactly where to find us. If you can't catch us live, that's okay, because I will go into post-editing later, and I will chop up segments of the show to make sure that you guys can catch the content later, the important stuff, minus the fluff and filler, without me just sitting here rambling and talking and repeating myself over and over, which I'm sure I will do a lot of, because who doesn't? Plus, a lot of guys prepare. Maybe I'm too lazy to do that. Or maybe I'm just a natural talent and don't need to. Probably more the first one. But that being said, I will go ahead and chop it up so that you only get the meat. Okay? So if you can't watch us live and you don't want to sit through an hour-long program or something of that nature, you'll be able to pick and choose little pieces of the show that are important to you, topics that interest you, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, stay tuned for that content as well. All right, so now that we are back, although, like, again, not officially, I wanted to go ahead and start with a few different topics of the news or the talking points of the day, the hot takes and things of that nature. So we're going to talk about a lot of LGBT issues to start with, and we'll talk about them again when we officially go live on Wednesday. But there's a few things I did want to get off my chest. So we're going to do that now. But before we do that, yesterday here in the U.S. was Father's Day, in other places in the world as well. And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit here before we get started. And I think that Father's Day is a great discussion for this show, for the relaunch of the show, for me specifically, and for politics in general. Okay, so one of the things that you will notice in this show is that I don't pull punches, and that I tell it like it is, exactly like I feel. Whether it's popular, whether it's unpopular, that's fine. You're going to get 100% authentic me. I will let you know I don't hide my viewpoints. I am strongly and staunchly a Christian conservative, so you're going to know immediately where I'm coming from. That being said, I'll say a lot of things on this program and this throughout the history of the show going forward that will make a lot of my fellow conservatives mad. I'll say a lot of things that rub other Christians the wrong way. Even though that's where my ideology lies, both politically and spiritually, I don't always echo the overwhelming consensus opinion for those who share my ideology. In addition to that, I'm open to dialogue. You see, I believe that we have to talk about things. That's why I have those two things. These are the two topics that you're not supposed to talk about, but who's telling us not to talk about it? It seems to me like, our parents tell us that, school teachers tell us that, all these people tell us about that because we're always worried about offending people and things and so forth. But I'm a firm believer that if we're going to get anything done, we have to communicate. We must communicate about anything that we would like to learn more about, that we would like to experience growth, that we would like to share and help others grow with. If we want to see improvement, we have to be able to talk about those things. And while politics and religion might make people uncomfortable, I defy you to tell me things that are actually more important than what we're dealing with daily and potentially what we'll be dealing with for eternity. So these are important topics, and yeah, they make people uncomfortable. But I don't think being uncomfortable means we shouldn't talk about them. If anything, I think it means we should probably talk about them more and have a desire to discuss these things because they are that important. So we're back, and we're going to do just that. And we're going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. We're going to make people who disagree with me uncomfortable. We're going to make a lot of people who agree with me uncomfortable because I have a different tact and a different approach to topics than most people do. I don't believe in just bashing the opposition and calling them names and attacking them just because it's fun to do and because they're different and they're the enemy. I don't believe in that. I believe in having dialogue, openness. I believe in being kind, considerate. I believe in speaking bravely and strongly and sternly, but I also believe in keeping them ears open and listening to what others have to say. And I also believe that just because you see something different or maybe someone does something that you don't like, I don't think that's an excuse to do it back to them. I believe in conducting myself in a way that would make my Heavenly Father pleased. And so I think that sometimes we put our fists up a little bit too much, and I don't do that. I don't see a reason to do it, and I don't think that it accomplishes anything. So anyway, that's those two things, and again, we're back. Now, I said yesterday was Father's Day, so let's talk a little bit about that. I think it's a great thing for us to talk about, especially when the topic that we're going to be starting with in our unofficial relaunch being mainly LGBT issues. And one of the reasons I think that Father's Day fits in here is a few reasons. Number one, let's start with this. I do believe that gender and sex are not the same exact thing, but they are certainly linked, and gender is biological. Sex is definitely biological. You are male or you are female. We can talk about intersex people later, but for the purpose of this discussion, you are male or you are female. And this doesn't come and go based upon how you feel or anything of that nature. Again, we're going to talk a lot about that. But right now I want to say that if you were born a biological male, you can be a father. You can be a father if you were born a biological male. If you were born a biological female, you cannot be a father, and Father's Day is not for you. And I'm going to talk more about that and upset even more people in just a moment. Just a moment. Don't worry. There's going to be plenty of opportunity to be mad at this guy. I'm going to give you a lot of chances to be mad at me in this show and several shows going forward. Don't worry. If that's what you're wanting to sit here for and get angered, I know a lot of people love to hate watch stuff. This is the program for you. I'm going to give you a lot of chances to hate watch. So, if you were born a biological male, yesterday was potentially for you. If you were born a biological female, yesterday was not for you. I don't care if you have transferred or transitioned, I guess I should say, not transferred. You have transitioned. You were born a female and now you are a male and you have children, so Father's Day is for you. No, I'm sorry. You're still a mother. You're still a mother. We're going to talk a little bit about that. When I said, hey, potentially for you, I also mean this. Something else that I see that annoys me is we talk constantly. We constantly try to make fathers and men unimportant. We try to diminish the impact of men in our lives, and it drives me nuts. I see well-meaning people get on Facebook and Twitter and all kinds of social media platforms and even do it in their day-to-day physical lives, and they'll say stuff like, Happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there, and to all you women out there who are pulling double duty. No. I told you I was going to give, even if you're not a pro-trans person, I told you you're still going to have a chance to be mad at me. Here you go. Father's Day is not for you single moms out there either. That doesn't mean I don't like you. That doesn't mean I don't love you. That doesn't mean I don't respect you. I have tremendous respect and admiration for single moms. I was raised by a single mother. My father was absent from my life for the better part of it. Tremendous love, respect, and admiration for single moms. But there is a day set aside for them. It's called Mother's Day. Father's Day is not for you. It isn't. We already try to lessen the impact and celebration of dads and males day in and day out across this country for millions of reasons. And I don't see too many people out there. Trust me, there are single dads out there too. I don't know if any of you are watching it right now or not, but undoubtedly some will wander across this. And I'm going to preach for you right now. I'm going to stand up for you right now. But even if it's not found by any single dads, we know that there are a lot of single dads out there as well. Are there more single moms? Yes. And we can discuss that in future shows. And we probably will too. And about all the reasons why that may be. And let me tell you, sometimes it's because there's deadbeat men who don't want to be a part of their children's lives. Sometimes there's another reason. It isn't because the man doesn't want to be there, but because there are forces outside of his control that don't let him be there, and because women a lot of times don't want the man to be there. So yeah, we'll step on some toes and we'll talk about those issues, but that's for another day. But right now I just want to say that big thank you to all the fathers that are out there. My own father passed away a couple years ago. As I said, he was absent from most of my life. We did not get along great when he was here. Most of my life we were estranged, but I do miss him. I do have a lot of regrets. I wish we had been able to connect and grow closer together before he passed away, and I can't do that now. So I find myself, missing out on those opportunities and strongly longing for them. But yeah, if you're a single mom, big ups to you. Big ups to you. But we have a day to celebrate that already. It's called Mother's Day. It is. And if you want to celebrate it big, or maybe the children want to do it up for you because they feel like you're pulling double duty, because you don't have a man there helping in your lives or whatever, maybe they should do something bigger for you. But there's a day set aside. Now, I don't think we only have to appreciate our parents one day of the year. There's nothing stopping us from celebrating our moms 365 days a year and our dads 365 days a year. In fact, we should do those things. The Bible tells us to honor our mother and our father. That's a 365-day-a-year rule, not a one-day-a-year rule. But Mother's Day is for mothers. Father's Day is for fathers. End of story. If you don't like that, and if you're mad at me for it, feel free to be mad at me for it. But that's what the day is set aside for. It's a day to honor fathers and the men in our lives who are stepping up and doing the right thing. If a man is not, if you don't have that fatherly figure in your life who's stepping up and doing the right thing, you can still appreciate your mother on Father's Day. But don't wish your mother a happy Father's Day. Again, that day is not set aside for that purpose, although you can still celebrate her. You can wish her a happy Mother's Day on Father's Day if you want to. But stop wishing these mothers a happy Father's Day because they're pulling double duty and stuff. I'm not trying to diminish their impact. Again, I have tremendous respect and admiration for them. If anything, I actually, in some ways, I think it's disrespectful to wish them a happy Father's Day. Because yes, I've already talked about how it's disrespectful to the men out there and it's taking away from them. But they're not a father. They're a mother. And a mother is a wonderful thing to be celebrated. It's a wonderful thing to be celebrated. We don't have to give them Daddy's Day. They have a great day set aside. And they're already a great thing. A mother is a fantastic thing. See, a dad can never be a mother. A father can never be a mother. And a mother, a mom, can never be a dad. They can never be a father. We need to accept that there are things that men can do that men should be doing. We can talk about whether or not a woman can do everything a man can do. We'll talk about those things too. We'll talk about whether or not a man can do everything a woman can do. Newsflash, there are differences biologically in the sexes. Okay, again, we're going to talk about some of that in just a few minutes here. But outside of that, I believe that there are duties. Now, I don't think that necessarily means that a woman can't be an auto mechanic. We'll talk about this again as we talk about the gender stuff, and we're going to talk about how it affects kids in just a moment. Or that a man can't love baking and gardening. All that stuff is fine. All that stuff is fine. And we can talk about whether or not men and women can have the same duties in church and so on and so forth. But I think regardless of how we want to look at these things, and regardless of how liberal approach you want to have, I think the Bible makes it very abundantly clear. I think traditions in our country make it abundantly clear. Not just our country, societies the world over make it abundantly clear that there are things that are well suited for a man to do, and there are things well suited for a female to do. That doesn't mean that every man is cut out to do those things that a man is supposed to do, or that every woman is cut out to do those things that a woman are cut out to do. It doesn't mean that. There are exceptions to the rules, for sure. But there are things that I think that innately within us just come more natural to us. And we should leverage that. That's not a bad thing. That's a strength. That's something that we can capitalize on. If there's something that you're naturally good at, why not pour into it? Furthermore, let's talk about responsibilities. Yeah, every man is not out there doing what he should be doing, ladies. I hear you. I hear you. Liberals, I hear you. Hey, these men aren't stepping up to the plate. Some of them aren't. But I'm not trying to get them a free pass either. I'm saying they should be. There are things as a man that God has tasked me with. There are responsibilities that are given to me. We act like in this patriarchal society that being a man gives us all sorts of privilege and everything goes our way in our direction. We're going to talk a lot in this show about how accurate and true that is. But outside of that, make no mistake, it isn't all a bed of roses, and it isn't just because you're a man, everything is great for you. There are a lot of conditions and responsibilities that come with being a male, that come with being a man. And not everyone is going to do that. But just because they are or they aren't doesn't change the responsibility. There are things that we are asked to do that we should be doing. And I think when we say Happy Father's Day to a mother, it's not just about celebrating. In some ways, it's letting that man off the hook. Let's not let the man off the hook. Let's celebrate those who are doing the right thing, and those who aren't, let's hold them accountable. Let's let them know, hey man, your kids need you. There are certain things that you could and should be doing for them. Get over there and do them. Okay? So again, Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there and all those who have stepped up. Yes, it's a day late, but know that I mean it earnestly. Happy Father's Day to you. And to the moms that are out there who are single moms, who don't have a man helping out, again, I applaud you. I admire you. And keep doing what you do. You are a hero to your families. But I'm not going to wish you a Happy Father's Day. Happy belated Mother's Day to you. And happy Mother's Day 365 days a year because you're doing a 365 day a year job. Okay? Now, off of that soapbox, on to a couple other ones, okay? So, let's talk a little bit about gender. Gender is a hot topic in our country right now, right? For many, many different reasons. Okay, let's talk about gender, and we could talk about Walsh's "What Is a Woman" documentary that's going on, and the books and the videos, and let me say, it's a fantastic channel. I agree with most things that the man says. Probably, I can't say everything. I haven't heard everything he said. I'm hesitant to say that I agree with anybody 100%. Right? That could get me in trouble later. But I will say I agree with him by and large. I will say though that there was an argument that I've been thinking for years now, and when he came out with this "What Is a Woman" stuff, I found myself going, I think you're leaving a very obvious argument out there, a very logical argument that you're not speaking on and saying on that you should. And recently he has, and I applaud him. And that is this concept of right now it's he's talking about how can you claim to be something, how can you identify as something that you can't even define. And I've always thought this, and he just recently started speaking about it, and I think he should have been all along, because to me it's a very logical conclusion to bring into this discussion. We're talking about gender identity. And that's this concept, okay? So again, we know, what is a woman? And the left is telling us we can't define that. And they're saying all kinds of things. During the Supreme Court hearings, I'm not sure that was an appropriate question for a Supreme Court justice hearing, by the way. I don't think that, I'm not sure that gender identity has anything to do with judicial philosophy. However, the question was asked, and of course we heard the response that I'm not sure. I'm not a biologist. If you're saying that the reason that you can't identify or define for us what a woman is because you're not a biologist, then I think you are sort of admitting to the fact that gender is biological. Right? I mean, if gender is not biological, then why do you need to be a biologist to answer that question? But anyway, so again, for me, the concept has been like, you say you identify, you're a biological male, but you identify as a female. You identify as a woman. I say to you, okay, define a woman for me. And you scuttle around and scratch and claw and avoid the question and everything. And ultimately you're telling me that you can't define a woman. Okay. All right. I think it should be an easy thing to do, but you're telling me you can't do it. Whether I think it's easy or not, doesn't matter what I think. I'm just going to take you at your word. You said that you can't define it. Okay, if you can't define it, then how can you identify as it? If I ask you to define a dog for me, and you tell me that you can't do that. Or I ask you to define for me a video game console, and you tell me that you can't do that. Or I ask you to define for me a forest, and you tell me that you can't do that. If you can't define for me what something is, then how can you point it out later? If you don't know what a dog is, if you don't know what a video game console is, if you don't know what a forest is, then how can you point one out? And how can you identify as it? It seems to me like in order to identify as it, you first have to know what it is. Otherwise, what are you saying that you identify as? What is your identity? In order for it to be your identity, you have to know what it is. So this is a concept that I've thought all along, and he recently started speaking about, and I think it's about time. Now also, another thing that I want to say is, let me just say something right now. As far as the trans community goes out there, this is important for me, and I want to make this very clear right now. And this is going to bother a lot of the people who share my ideological opinion. Because again, I'm not always going to say things that they love or support or agree with. But that's okay. I tell it like it is, and I'm authentic, whether it's popular or not. So what I want to say in this case is, if you're a member of the trans community, I have nothing against you. I don't even think you're doing anything wrong. Now notice, I said I don't think you're doing anything wrong. that does not mean that I don't think that there is anything wrong. There is something wrong. There is something inherently wrong. And I am a firm believer that the AMA, the APA, and the WHO, I am a firm believer that these three organizations and that the left, the liberals across the world, I'm a firm believer that they have done a far bigger disservice and are far more guilty of hating and discriminating and spreading pain to the trans community than conservatives ever have. Are there conservative bigots out there? Without a doubt. Are there right-leaning people with, when you want to stick a whatever letter next to their name, R for Republican or just C for conservative because they don't recognize or identify as being part of the party or whatever. Are there bigots out there on the right? You bet there are. There are also bigots out there on the left. Are there a lot of people in the Christian right who like to judge and condemn and beat and belittle people? Yes, there are. I won't dodge that. But that's not everyone. And to act like that everyone on the right or everyone at the church is guilty of that, it's false. In fact, it's discriminatory to say that. To put everybody in the same group and act like everyone's guilty of the same thing. It's not true. It's discriminatory to act like that is a brush that you can paint everyone with. I concede there are bigots on my side of the aisle. I concede that. I'll also say that, again, there are bigots on the other side of the aisle. But I'll also say that we need to look at what bigotry is and what hatred is, because I think that we look at it wrong a lot of times. Again, I started by saying that I truly believe that the WHO, the World Health Organization, the APA, the AMA, and the liberals, the left, the progressives, have done far, far more damage to trans people in this world today than conservatives have or ever will. And one of the reasons I say this is for most of history, modern history, since this gender stuff is a pretty modern creation in terms of gender identity, but for most of modern history, modern medical history, modern psychological history, we looked at these gender issues when you identified as something other than the way you were born. It was called a gender identity disorder. It was a mental illness. And then we got into this politically correct society that we live in, and we decided that we wanted to stop hurting people's feelings. We want everyone to feel loved and accepted. Hey, I get the idea that we want people to feel loved and accepted. I want people to feel loved and accepted too. And as I started this rant with, I wanted to again say, I don't believe that if you are trans, you are doing anything wrong. I do think that there is something wrong. There is something wrong. And because I love you, I'm unwilling to look at you, pat you on the back, tell you you're just fine the way you are, and send you on your way. In my opinion, that is what the left has done. That is what the WHO has done, the AMA and the APA. We have taken people who have a serious issue, and we have swept it under the rug because we don't want to hurt people's feelings. We don't want to make people frown or feel bad. This is like taking someone who has schizophrenia and telling them, hey, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just fine, just the way you are. Don't hang your head to anyone. You don't let anyone talk down to you. You don't let anyone tell you there's something wrong with you. You stick your head, your chin held high, you put your chest out, and you let the whole world know that you're fine just the way you are. It's great to have pride. It's great to be confident. It's not great to be delusional. It's not great to ignore problems. You see, if someone has schizophrenia and you tell them that they're just fine because you don't want to hurt their feelings, you don't want to call them crazy, probably shouldn't call them crazy. You don't want to use a lot of terms that maybe might hurt their feelings or be derogatory. You don't have to be derogatory or be a jerk. You don't have to be a jerk to level with somebody. Now, I do believe that political correctness is its own enemy, and there's plenty of things to unwind there. But what I'm telling you is, there's nothing wrong with telling a person the truth. And if you truly love people, you should want to share the truth with them. You know, like I'm telling you right now, what if you had cancer? The doctor comes into the room and tells you the bad news. Is it going to be devastating? Yeah. Is it going to crush your world? Yes. But I am also going to tell you that if the doctor tells you that, you have a much better chance at surviving cancer if you receive cancer treatment than if the doctor sees the results and then comes in there and pats you on the back and says, nothing wrong here. You're perfect just the way you are. Head on home. It's not good. We are not doing anything. We are not servicing trans people at all by telling them that they are perfect the way they are, that everything is just fine. It's a lie. And I say it's a hateful lie. They need help. And if we care about the people around us, we should want to help them. So I maintain again that the far left in our country, and the world over, to be honest, and the WHO and AMA and APA, all of these professionals have done those people a tremendous disservice. And I say that they're far, far more guilty of hate than a conservative who says, hey man, something's wrong and you should probably get some help is. You may not like to hear, hey, there's something wrong and you should probably get some help. But if there's something wrong and you should get some help, it's the responsible thing to tell someone. It's much better than telling them to stick their head in the sand and pretend otherwise. If you're trans, I got nothing against you. And I love you. But there is something wrong. And I'm not going to feed into your delusion or tell you that you're normal and perfect just the way you are. Because it's not true. And to me, that would be much more hateful than telling you, we've got something wrong and we've got to get to the bottom of it. We have to get to the bottom of it. All right. Let's leave the T and let's get to the LGB stuff. All right. So now, this is Pride Month, right? Pride Month. Let me tell you guys a little story about Pride Month. One of the reasons I have time to dedicate to live streaming 3 days a week now is because I recently lost my job due to Pride Month, due to the left being incredibly accepting and tolerant of people who think differently than they do. What I mean by that is this. I wasn't officially fired. What I was suspended and told that I couldn't come back until I complied with their requests. So essentially what had happened was we had this internal message board, like a forum, a wiki, and so on and so forth. And they asked us to go on there and talk about why Pride Month is a great thing and why we should celebrate it and why we are blessed. It wasn't the word they used. Blessed would probably be a word that they'd be afraid to use. but why we were grateful to work for an employer and work in an environment where we encouraged inclusivity and everyone, I guess, to approve of one another and accept of one another. And I did not go and post anything. And I was asked why I didn't do that. And I said, because I don't believe that. And so I was sent home without pay. I came back the next day, and I was asked if I was going to go ahead and put something on the board. I told them no. And so I was told, okay, hold on. Your manager will speak to you. So eventually it came, and I was sent home again without pay. I asked if this was just going to be a repetitive thing where we were just going to repeat the cycle every day. And basically what I was told was I was suspended without pay until I could come back and comply with company policy. And I told them, well, you can't tell me how to think or feel. And they said, we're not trying to get you to do that. We're trying to get you to accept others. And I said, hey, I do accept others, but that doesn't mean I have to celebrate things that I view as sinful. You see, this is another thing. Let's talk about something real quick. This is again, like with most topics, I can aggravate and make upset the people who disagree with me, and I can upset people who actually think the same way I do, but because I have a different tact and different approach to it. And this is going to be one of those. When it comes to gay, I have a very important question for you. Is it sinful to be gay? Is it a sin to be gay? Is being gay a sin? The question's out there. Now, depending upon which side of the political aisle you're on, or depending upon where your spirituality is, you may already have an answer. And I'm here to tell you that more than likely, no matter which side of those tables you're on, you're probably not thinking about the question fully or correctly. I would submit to you, it's not a sin to be gay. It is not a sin to be gay. I am a licensed and ordained minister, and I am telling you right now, here's your big sound clip. Here's your big thing to take out of context. It's not a sin to be gay. You must not be a real Christian. How can you call yourself pastor? How can you think these things or feel these things? It's because I understand that there's a difference between someone being gay and someone doing homosexual activity. You see, for many, many years, there was this dialogue, and the progressives and the left and the gay community would say, hey, we're born that way, we can't help it. And the left would say, hey, they're born that way, they can't help it. And the church would usually rush in and go, you're not born that way. That's nonsense. I can show you why you're not born that way. Even when that was the dialogue, it was either they're born that way or they're not born that way. I never really got into that argument because I always thought it was a straw man and it didn't matter. I've got no problem believing that potentially people are born gay. I have no problem believing that. I think it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It does not matter if you're born gay or not. You see, Christians wanted to rush and say, of course they're not born gay because God makes you perfect and so on and so forth. Well, I also know that we're born with a sin debt. And the Bible makes it clear that we are creatures of the flesh. The Bible makes it very clear that I was guilty from conception. When I was made, I was guilty. When I was made, I deserved punishment. That's why we all need the saving grace of Jesus Christ. None of us are above it. None of us. From the second that I was born, I was in trouble. Even before then. Which means we're going to talk a lot about an age of accountability on this channel several times too. That's coming up soon. But having said that, you see, I have no problem believing that you were born gay. I was born desiring things that I shouldn't desire either. Maybe I don't look at a man and think, I want to get me some of that. But there are definitely things that God says, Jace, these are off limits. Turn away from them. Avoid them. Get away. They are sinful. And I still look at them and think, I'd like some more of that. Bring that closer. Any of us, if we're honest, can all admit that we find certain things appealing that it would be best for us if we didn't. That are sinful, that cause separation between us and God. So to sit there and say that someone is born gay doesn't make them a bad person. We're all bad people. I'm a bad person. If you're watching this video, you're a bad person. The Bible likes to use the word righteous. For there is none righteous, no, not one. I think you can substitute the word good and righteous. I think they're great synonyms here. I'm not good. I'm not a good man. A lot of people think I'm a good man. I'm not. Because no one is my measuring stick other than Jesus Christ. And when you look at me in comparison to him, I look pretty terrible. I've got an ugly heart. I've got an ugly brain. I want a lot of stuff that I shouldn't want. I think a lot of things that I shouldn't think. I do a lot of things that I shouldn't do. I'm not righteous. Neither are you. Here's the thing. If you are born gay, is that permission to go out? If you're a biological male, let's go back to that again. Let's connect these issues. If you're a biological male and you are born with a predisposition to being attracted to men, does that make it okay for you to go out and sleep with men? Do you have carte blanche to go out and sleep with all the guys you want to because it's natural for you? You were born that way. You can't help it. Answer: no. It doesn't. It's not okay. It doesn't. It's not okay. See, something that the left likes to say too is that love is love. Love is love. I agree. Love is love. We're not talking about love. We're talking about sex. Let me repeat that. We're not talking about love. We're talking about sex. Okay? If you are a male and you are naturally attracted to other men, maybe you are. There's nothing wrong with you being attracted to other men. That's called temptation, and that's something that we as the church, we need to get better at looking at and looking at these things properly and loving the people around us. Temptation is not sin. Let me repeat that again. Temptation is not sin. Okay? There's a difference. Sin is what you engage in once you give in to temptation. Once you take it upon yourself to deliver yourself into that hand. But being tempted itself is not sinful. Okay? So, if you are a man and you're naturally attracted to other men, I can see that. And I'm not going to say that you're gross or terrible or this or that. You like who you like. But just because you like that person doesn't mean that you're obligated to sleep with them. I'm naturally attracted to brunettes. I find Latinas to be a very, very sexy group of people. There is nothing there that obligates me to sleeping with brunette ladies or only dating or entering into relationships with Hispanic females. Just because I am naturally attracted to those people doesn't mean I have to do anything there. I can certainly date a blonde. Or I can decide that a Japanese lady should be my wife. Now you might say, but if you're not attracted to them, what do you want me to do? Well, there's something else that you could do. And you could cry and whine and complain about it. But you could remain celibate. And Christian, listen up here. Listen to me here, okay? This is very important. Because I know that one time when I was a senior pastor of a church, I can remember I went out into the parking lot after preaching a sermon. And I saw these two guys out there in the parking lot, and they were gay bashing. And they were saying a lot of hateful, bigoted things. And talking about how gross and disgusting these people were. And how they're all going to hell. And what I found interesting about one of these people specifically was that this gentleman one of the two gentlemen had been coming to the church since my entire time there. He was not married, but he had a lady that he lived with. And they had a minivan sitting out there in the parking lot. And on the back glass, they had those stick figure people decals. You know what I'm talking about? And it was him. And there was a stick figure for his girlfriend. And then they had like 4 or 5 kids. I can't remember what it was. And then they were all pictured there, and then the little dog at the end. And I couldn't help but say something to him. Because we need to hold our brothers and sisters in Christ accountable. We need to show spirits of love. And as I went back to with the trans thing, sometimes love means being honest with people and sharing the truth with them. Maybe truth that they don't like. But I also think that we need to be careful about having plank eye syndrome. There's nothing wrong with telling someone else that the stuff that they're doing is wrong and is causing separation between them and God. There is something tremendously wrong, however, about doing that and refusing to be introspective and look inwardly at what is broken in our own lives. And so I couldn't help but listen to him say these terrible, terrible things about these gay people. And I said to him, "Are you no more deserving of going to hell than they are?" And he looked really bothered by this. I think he wanted to hit me. But then he wised up for just a second, had a moment of maturity. And he was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I was like, "Do you think God approves any more of you living with your girlfriend and you guys having 4 or 5 kids out of wedlock? Do you think he's any bigger a fan of that than he is of the 2 guys that you're talking about?" He's like, "Well, that's what they do is it's sickening, and what they do is it's an abomination." An abomination, that's a word that the church loves to throw around, especially when it comes to this topic. If you look at the breakdown of the word abomination, it's something that is truly distasteful. Something that goes against God. Let me break this down for you. An abomination is sin. It's a sin. The love of God, the grace of Christ, washes away all sin. Not some sin, not most sin, all sin. And if you don't have God's grace, God's forgiving grace, then you wear all sin. My favorite verse in the Bible is actually James 2:10, and it's a verse that you don't hear kicked around very often, and you especially don't hear people talk about it as being their favorite verse. Why? Because it holds us accountable. It makes us stop being judgmental, condescending jerks. Because it tells us that we're all guilty. Yes, there is Romans 3:23, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, right? But James 2:10 hits even more in the face. Because James 2:10 tells us that whoever keeps the law but stumbles in one point becomes guilty of breaking it all. Essentially what that means is if you are a young man or woman out there and you are not married and you are engaged in a sexual relationship with someone of the opposite sex, truly, if we want to call a spade, you are sinful. You are fornicating. You are committing the sin of fornication, okay? I cannot say that you are engaged in homosexual activity because you're not. However, you are just as guilty as people who are engaged in homosexual activity. James 2:10 says that once you broke that covenant, you broke all of it. Because that's what we need to look at. So we need to look at, we have a covenant, an agreement with us and God. And his law is not a list of different laws. The law is one thing, and you either follow it or you don't. In my case, I haven't. In your case, spoiler alert, you haven't. None of us have. We've all broken the law. We're all guilty. And by virtue of James 2:10, that means we're all guilty of everything. So we all need that same saving grace. And we'd better be careful about who we're pointing fingers at and shaking fingers at. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm excusing homosexual behavior. Again, I'm not. I started this by saying that it's wrong. But it isn't more wrong than the other sin. So if you're watching this and you're homosexual, I'm not giving you carte blanche again to go out and sleep with all the people of the same sex that you want to. But if you're not gay, if you're a straight person, male or female, I'm also not giving you carte blanche to go out there and sleep with whoever you want either. God has given us a very simple set of rules, and we have to either decide that we're going to obey him or not. And if we're not in the business of obeying God, then we don't have the right to freak out and be bothered by and disgusted at other people who are also not following God. We're in the same boat. We're in the same boat. They're not obeying, we're not obeying. Well, probably the right thing to do is for us to fix us. Remove that plank from our own eye before we reach to remove that speck from theirs. And you might say, well, the analogy breaks, though, because in this case, it's me. I'm the one with the speck. They're the one that has a plank. And so, I'm doing a little bit of sin. Yeah, I'm doing something wrong. You got me. I am sinning. I shouldn't be sleeping with my girlfriend. But what they're doing is way worse. Not to God. You're both failing. You're both breaking his word. You're both causing separation between you and the master. It's easy to always tell ourselves that we're doing the lesser evil. They're doing the worst thing. This is the way it works. There's an interesting thing about us. Our species likes to operate like this. Like I said earlier, Bob is not my measuring stick. Jesus Christ is my measuring stick. I'm not your measuring stick. Maybe you sit there and go, Jace, I live a better life than you do. Jace, I live a cleaner life than you do. I'm holier than you, pal. Maybe you are. I'm not going to debate it. Perhaps you are. Maybe you are doing a better job of following God than I am. Bad news. I'm not your measuring stick. Jesus is your measuring stick. How are you doing in comparison to him? We like to do this. We like to play a little game. If we're smokers, and someone tells us, hey, you shouldn't be smoking, usually we'll tell them to mind their own business. Or we'll snap at them. If we want to be mature or pretend that we're mature, then we'll try to dodge it. We'll try to justify our behavior. We'll go, yeah, you got me. You're right. I shouldn't be smoking. But hey, the good thing is, at least I'm not an alcoholic. I could be out there getting drunk every day, right? We know the problems that alcoholics have, so at least I'm not doing that. That's what we like to do. We like to justify what we do by looking at someone who's doing something worse. The problem then is the alcoholic does the exact same thing. You confront him and he says, well, yeah, I throw a few back. I do throw a few too many back. I spend a lot of money I shouldn't be spending on that stuff. I don't always make the best decisions. I don't always know where I slept the night before and so on and so forth. But it could be worse. I mean, I don't drive drunk. I at least stop there. And then the person who's been convicted of DUI overhears that, feels their toe stepped on. They're like, ouch, man. Okay, I hear you. You're right. I shouldn't be drinking and driving. Okay, bravo to you. You don't get behind the wheel when you're drinking. Great. But while I do that, I mean, I've never hit my girlfriend, so at least I'm not a violent guy. And then the abuser, the chronic abuser, hears that and says, oh, man. Well, maybe I've done that, but I mean, I have never, taken it too far or hit her too much. I've certainly never raped anyone, and the rape, this goes on and on. You see where I'm going with this. The point is, it's always easy to look around to see someone who's guilty of doing something bigger than we are. A bigger damage. But I'm here to tell you, God doesn't look at it that way. If you're a male and you're having sex with another man, you're guilty of sin. It's not okay. If you're a man and you're having sex with a woman, that may not be okay either. Very specific question. Are you married to her? If the answer to that question is yes, congratulations. If the answer is any other, you're sinning. Oh, well, you're engaged? You're getting married next week? Well, congratulations, I'm happy for you. You're not supposed to be sleeping with her until that time. You don't have a free pass to do it because you did propose. See, people don't want to hear conversations like this. People don't want to be held accountable. People don't want to be talked to like this because we all want to look around, like I said, and hold everyone else accountable, but we don't hold ourselves accountable. So again, I'll repeat. It's not sinful to be gay. It is, however, sinful to have homosexual relations. We'll talk more about all of these things coming up. But I think for an unofficial first show, this has been a great place to leave it. So tune in next time. If you're watching this for the first time, there is a like and subscribe option. You should probably do so, especially if you want to hear people talk about things in an open, honest manner and maybe challenge you. Or maybe you should just watch and subscribe to see how much you disagree with me and make sure you get every line of me so that you know exactly what to hate, exactly what to be triggered by, and exactly what your death threats are going to say. Get them ready, okay? I'll see you in the next show.
Did you like that? Do you want more? Then you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe. Hated the show? Hated Jace? Want to put Jace on blast? That's fine too. Let us know in the comments. And whether you love us or hate us, join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for another opportunity to talk about those two things.